I see the problem. There it is. All right, let's move that over here. Put that there. Readjust this. And okay, let's check again. Hello, hello. Hey, we have sound now. Let's go. Okay, so let's start over. Good evening, everybody. Hello and welcome to another Wednesday night Bible study here at Faith Baptist Church on Facebook and YouTube Live. We're coming at you live this evening, unless it's not 7 o'clock on a Wednesday evening, in which case this is not live. This is what we call a video on demand, and we appreciate you being here anyways. I want to say good evening to Sylvia, who I said good evening to earlier, but she evidently wasn't listening. I mean, it's hardly my fault that my microphone wasn't on. I mean, really, who do we blame for that, you know? No, but seriously, it is going to be a good evening this evening. We got a great story for you this evening as we're continuing our series through the books of history. Some action-packed stories in here. Today's story is no different. A little intense, but it's a very good story. Hopefully we learn something from it. Hopefully we glean from the Lord this evening. And hopefully you enjoy your time here. So as I was saying, we don't have anything new for you as far as prayer requests or updates go. Just continue to pray for the things that we mentioned on Sunday. Those that are sick. I think my cousin Tish is still trying to overcome her sicknesses.
Tiffany has pneumonia and Bill has viral bronchitis.
Right, and that's not changed at all? Okay. So we need to get you mic'd up. Good sidekick might help this thing out, right? Someone to ask the questions everybody's too afraid to ask and make comments about things. That would be fun. It'd be like a little podcast, wouldn't it? Anyway, let's see. Continue being in prayer for the McLeod family. Dana McLeod passed away here recently. Billy McLeod going through a lot health-wise as well. Billy McLeod is the sort of matriarch of the family, and Dana McLeod is her daughter. Was her daughter. Well, is her daughter. So just be in prayer for that family. They're going through a lot right now. Let's see. What else did we mention? Just continue to be in prayer for those things that we already have. Be in prayer for one another. Pray for our service on Sunday, as always. And if you guys have something that you'd like for us to pray for, something we haven't already mentioned, either tonight or on Sunday or what have you, thank you so much. I'm pointing to different places where it's popping up. Let's see, with this finger, there, and then you guys will be there. Anyway, continue to pray for these things. If you guys have something, let me know. Tonight we're in 1 Samuel 22. How long have we been live? We've been live for 4 minutes. Let's go ahead and hop over to the Bible study. And here we are at the Bible study. So, this is our Bible scene. This is the Bible. It is the King James Version of the Bible. This is the Bible that our church uses. If you'd like to know why, then ask me. Probably everybody here knows why. I try not to be too judgmental about things, but I have my reasons for why I believe what I believe. And if you'd like to know why, I would love to give you a 2-hour lecture on the subject. So if you're down for that, you know.
Amen.
Hey, thank you so much, Sylvia. I appreciate that. Well-timed amen. I heard Amanda, I said 2-hour lecture, and Amanda goes, "Yep." So she knows.
Amen.
Living with me. Hey, another well-timed hi man. Thank you so much, Sylvia. I appreciate that. Put this somewhere it won't like. There we go. Block out my gorgeous face. So tonight we're in 1 Samuel 22. We're going to start reading in verse 1. So it's going to kind of pick up where we left off at. Let me adjust my camera. I hate to adjust my camera. Can I adjust the camera here? I can. Let's go. Okay. I got distracted. I'm good now. So we're going to pick up where we left off last week, where we're talking about David and chapter 21, where he was getting the bread from the priest in the high priest's house and so forth. And thank you so much for the share, Sylvia. It didn't pop up, but I appreciate that. I see it. And he got the bread from the high priest, not the high priest, but the priest and so forth. One of Saul's men was there. And we briefly mentioned that. And I said we'd come back to it. That'd be an important factor later. Now is that time. But before we get to all of that, we're going to pick up where we left off with David first in verse 1. It says, David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brethren and all his father's house heard it, they went down thither to him. So his brethren and all his father's house, that's his kin, that's his kinfolk, his family, all went down there to support him. And everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented gathered themselves unto him, and he became a captain over them. And there were with him about 400 men. And David went thence into... You guys please let me know if you can hear that train blowing. Everywhere I live, I feel like I've got a train chasing me. I can hear it. It sounds like it's interrupting me. If you guys can hear it, please let me know. Because as I'm sitting here trying to read the Bible, I hear... And it's obnoxious. If it's obnoxious to you, I'll tweak it. I'll fix it. For y'all, not for me. I'm going to hear it no matter what. Here in Justin, every time it turns dark, there's a train just blasting outside my window. Anyway. Huh? Even after they close the railroad track. David went thence to... Do what? Okay. David went... Did you just snort?
Making those funny sounds.
Let's try this one more time. Verse 3. And David went thence to Mizpah of Moab. And he said unto the king of Moab, Let my father and my mother, I pray thee, come forth and be with you, till I know what God will do for me. And in verse 4 it says, He brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the while that David was in the hold. And the prophet Gad said unto David, Abide not in the hold, depart and get thee into the land of Judah. Then David departed and came into the forest of Hereth. So this has been a whole journey that David has been on in these 5 brief verses. A couple of things I wanted to talk about was, I can't help but mention a parallel I see between experiences that I've had and experiences that David has had. So he's been chased out of this place he thought he was destined to be, and he is chased out to live in exile. Had all these men under him, soldiers and so forth that followed his command, and now he's by himself in the wilderness. Only he's not by himself for very long, because the people that followed him were his family. His family comes with him in his exile, right? And that was sort of my journey. I tried my best to be a part of these other churches that, quite frankly, just aren't interested in me. Here very recently, I emailed a bunch of churches all around this one, trying to, get a little bit of fellowship, trying to get my name out there a little bit and let people know I'm here and I can be a help and so forth, and crickets. So it's sort of an exile situation, but at the same time, the people that followed David were his family, and a lot of the people that attend my church are family. Though not every member of the family, not every person that's related to me comes to this church, but I tell you, the parallel I see is what I see in verse 2, because the people that go to this church are these people, everyone that was in distress and everyone that was in debt. It's not as though David's going to pay all their debts for them, but these are the people that have some burnout, some people that feel like they were burnt in the past, some people that have some hurt, some people that are struggling, some people that are suffering, and nobody seems to care. And then they found this one guy, David, that cared, and they gathered and they rallied behind him. And that seems to be the crowd we're gathering here at Faith Baptist Church. Everyone that was in distress, everyone that was in debt, everyone that was discontented, that's a good word for it, discontented, they gathered themselves unto him. Right? So I don't suppose or would even want anybody to gather themselves under my name, because I'm not the one we rally behind. Our captain is the Lord Jesus Christ. And when we rally under him. I'm just a follower like the rest of you. If he gives me a message from the Bible to give you, I'll give it to you. But I don't consider myself to be over anybody. I'm one of these that followed the Lord into the wilderness, into exile. But we all rallied in this place, in this church. We come together because we're in distress. Because we were in debt, because we were discontented with the way things are. I think there's a multitude of us out there that tried to go to a church we thought was a good church, that we thought stood on the right doctrine, the right principles, and tried our best to go there, and then something that had nothing to do with doctrine, something that had nothing to do with biblical principle, caused us to leave. And then we feel this burn. We feel this every time we hear the word church, or we pass a church, or we hear a certain person's name that used to go to that church or still goes to that church. You feel a little prickling somewhere inside you. It bothers you. Maybe you even wish you didn't feel like that, but you can't always help how you feel. These are the kind of people that are rallying to David. David is often in the Bible a picture of Christ. And these are the people that, if you'll notice, in the New Testament also rallied to Christ. Because he wasn't gathering Pharisees and Sadducees and scribes to himself like they thought they would when Christ was born. They thought when Christ came into the world that it would be this glorious heaven-opening experience, and he would come down unto them and save them from their oppressors and so forth. And that's not what happened. And so they said, "Oh, he doesn't agree with me? Well, that can't be my God." And, none of us are perfect. None of us have a perfect understanding of things. When we get to heaven, God's going to have to fine-tune us a little bit. And we're not going to be able to go, "Oh, you don't perfectly agree with me? Well, then you can't be my God." Because that's not how it works. So when Jesus is gathering people, he's not gathering scribes and scholars and Pharisees with their royal garb on all the time and standing in the street corners. That's not who he's gathering. He's gathering fishermen, right? He's gathering tax collectors. He's gathering, people that worked in the fields. He's gathering the sort of people that everybody else overlooked. He's gathering people that are down and out. People that are in distress and discontented, and people that were in fact in debt. He's gathering the crowd that nobody else cares to look at. And in the same way, that's kind of what we're doing here, is this crowd, the super spiritual, holy pastors in their, they the way they dress and the way they walk and the way they talk, they're always on. They've got one eyebrow up all the time, and, they're being very rude to you, but they smiled when they said it, so therefore it doesn't count. All the nonsense that goes on in these churches that we tried so hard, and we feel that rejection, don't we? Everyone in distress, in debt, and discontented. We gather ourselves together unto Christ. And I hope, if you feel that way, that these live streams could be an encouragement to you. I hope that you can watch me talk about the Bible and feel comfortable. I realize I sound like a lot of those other guys. I realize that it looks a lot like what everybody else is doing, but the difference shouldn't be in the kind of music we play, right? That's not what matters. The difference shouldn't be in the kind of Bible we use, right? That's not what should matter. And if you disagree with me, get over it. What should matter is whether or not we behave like Christ. Not whether or not we say we behave like Christ. I recently saw a Facebook post from somebody who will remain anonymous. I'm not going to blast anybody out on live stream. This person was on Facebook talking about how they had gotten upset at a certain situation and started raging at somebody. Well, not really raging, but they said a mean thing to somebody in a situation, and then realized that they were wearing, something Christian on them. And how we always should be aware of the fact that as Christians, we represent Christ all the time, in every situation, everywhere we go, which I thought was a fantastic thought. and very true. But the comments were filled with these people that were saying, no, you did absolutely right. Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you can't do people that way. And one person commented, well, Jesus flipped the tables. You can get mad. You're allowed to get mad and yell at people and treat them like that. That's fine. No. Wrong. Bad. When Jesus flipped over the tables, it was at church. It was at the temple. And these people were standing outside trying to sell things for people to offer. They're trying to make money from the house of God. They're trying to be lucrative, rich businessmen off the backs of the name of Jehovah. And that is what Jesus got mad at. Sort of flipping tables over. Hey, that wasn't a regular every Sunday occurrence, by the way. He was mad at what was going inside of church by super spiritual Pharisees who didn't care whether or not there were, these merchants outside trying to get rich off the backs of the church, of the temple, of worship toward God. And he got upset about that, and that's not the way it should be, which, by the way, that's happening in our churches today. You think, well, not my church, because my church is a good church. It would never sell things, wouldn't have tables outside selling music CDs, stuff like that. It's wrong, folks. It's happening in even the most conservative of churches. Right? So I said all that to say that what matters is how we should be like Christ. That's the thing we should rally together under. And if that is mentioned, right, let's rally under Christ, and it doesn't draw everybody together, what happens is that moment with Moses. He comes back down off the mountain. He draws a line in the sand. He said, those on the Lord's side, get over here. Not everybody did. They were all Israelites. They all saw the parting of the Red Sea. But not everybody came over to that line in the sand, and God destroyed the rest. What happens is a line in the sand, and we say, let's rally under Christ, those Christians who say, well, no, that's not all that matters. I'm going to rally under these things over here. And it matters that we behave like Christ, but it also matters what Bible you use, and it also matters what music you listen to, and so forth. They're not interested in behaving like Christ. You imagine for a second that if Christ was here, he would be screaming at somebody for the things that happen in these people's lives. He absolutely would not. If you think he does, you're warping his personality to fit what you want. Let's be interested in the truth. Right? Let's rally under Christ. That's what we're trying to do here. And I hope if you're watching these live streams, this can be a place where you can, with us, rally under Christ. If you have a question, you disagree with something, leave a comment. We'll talk about it. I'm not one of those pastors that's going to bash you in the head for believing something differently than me. They're rallying under David. David also, notice in verse 3, he makes sure his mom and dad are somewhere safe and secure. He makes sure they're outside of Israel because he does not think that King Saul is above murdering his family just to get even with him. That he knows that King Saul hates him so badly that he would just kill any member of David's family he can find just because he hates him that bad. That accomplishes nothing. Killing his mom and dad, that does nothing for Saul. That does nothing against David strategically. That does nothing against David in the thralls of war. It's just something he might do because he hates David so much. And that's exactly what we see David trying to protect his parents from. So a very noble gesture on David's part as well. We see in verse 5, David's journey is sort of explained to us. So while he's in exile from King Saul, it says he went and dwelt in Moab. So Moab is not in Israel. It's one of those warring nations, right? So David has left Israel because he says, I don't want to oppose Saul. He may no longer have respect for me, but I still want to show respect for him. He's still God's anointed man. But God here saying, no, I need you to stay in Israel. So he sends the prophet Gad to David and says, go back to Judah. And the Bible says that David did exactly that. He went back to Judah, but he's living in a forest and trying to live in such a way where he's not causing problems for Saul. Well, Saul doesn't care about that. He doesn't really realize, David doesn't realize that. Saul doesn't care whether or not David is at the moment being a problem for him, because word has reached his ears that God Almighty is on David's side and not on Saul's side anymore. So no matter how good a person David is, Saul wants him gone. And this is the thing that David doesn't quite, I'm sure he understands it, but it's just the thing that David can't quite comprehend, because he's not as malicious as King Saul. You know, you can't wrap your head around the mentality of somebody willing to do something so heinous and evil. And speaking of doing things so heinous and evil, we come to our next part in verse 6. Scroll down just a little bit. It says, when Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men that were with him, now Saul abode in Gibeah under a tree in Ramah, having his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing about him. Saul is on the move. He's in Gibeah, he's under a tree, and he has a weapon in his hand ready to throw the moment he can kill this boy. Saul said unto all his servants that stood about him, hear now, ye Benjamites. Will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards, and make you all captains of thousands and captains of hundreds? That all of you have conspired against me, and there is none that showeth me that my son hath made a league with the son of Jesse. There is none of you that is sorry for me, or showeth unto me that my son hath stirred up my servant against me to lie in wait, as at this day. So we see in verses 6 through 8 a picture of the type of council meeting that would have decided the fate of the country, but this one decides the fate of David. And at this meeting, Saul is feeling sorry for himself. He's throwing himself a little pity party. He says, boys, I'm hurt. I don't understand it. Is David the one that's going to give you fields? Is David going to give you your own vineyard? Is David going to give you hundreds and thousands of servants to call your own? No, he can't do that, boys. I don't understand this. You've conspired against me. Not one of you who knew full well you all did. Not one of you knew that my own son had made a league with David behind my back. That they had both conspired together to ruin me. And you all knew it, and nobody was willing to tell me about it. I have no loyal servants. This is the kind of pity party nonsense that Saul is saying to his own soldiers, to his own captains, his own generals, as it were. Now, you remember we mentioned Doeg the Edomite last week? David's getting this stuff from the priest. And it says, oh, by the way, this guy Doeg the Edomite was there and heard the whole thing. Anyway, back to our story. So then in verse 9, we pick up again with this guy Doeg. Then answered Doeg the Edomite, which was set over the servants of Saul, and said, I saw the son of Jesse. Notice they're not even saying his name. They're not even saying David. They're just saying the son of Jesse. It's almost like in Harry Potter when they kept saying, he who must not be named. Like they're afraid to even mention his name. I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech the son of Ahitub. And he inquired of the Lord for him, and gave him victuals, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. Then the king sent to call Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests that were in Nob, and they came all of them to the king. At this point, Saul has become a little crazy. He's heard what happened. Doeg told. And the king has summoned Ahimelech and all the priests under Ahimelech to himself, where he is in this place of, I lost my place a little bit, in Gibeah. And in verse 12, Saul said, "Good evening, Miss Christie." Saul said, "Hear now, thou son of Ahitub." And he said, Here I am, my lord." So in verses 9 and 10, we see this man Doeg speaking up about David taking rest and refuge at Nod. Nod, little information for you that you might find interesting, was a city of priests led by the descendants of Eli. So you might remember Eli, he was the one that sort of taught Samuel in his own time before Samuel was ready to take up that leadership role. So the descendants of Eli has built this city called Nod, and Doeg, he was there in that place and time where David showed up, and he took all of these things for himself because the priest had allowed it, this holy bread and the sword of Goliath and so forth. And he was there to tell Saul all about it. So now Saul is there knowing about it. And what we see from Doeg is a picture of a man who's more faithful to his king than he was to his God. And this is a lesson that some servants and soldiers have already learned. We might remember a few chapters back, before David entered the scene, when Saul's own son Jonathan had in fact defied the orders of his father the king, and did in fact go in when he wasn't supposed to, and conquered the opposing army. And when he came back, his father said to have him killed. We maybe remember this, and the soldiers that were there refused to do it because it was wrong. There are several examples of this throughout the Bible. There are the soldiers chasing the spies for Israel, and the harlot Rahab hides them on the roof and lies to the soldiers and sends them in the wrong direction to keep these guys safe. You've also got the story of the Egyptian midwives in the book of Exodus, who were told to kill all the Hebrew males, babies, as they were born. And they refused to do it because it was wrong. And the Bible says the Lord blessed them for it. Right? So this is another example of the Bible trying to teach us. The Bible is constantly trying to teach us this lesson of being faithful to God before you're faithful to people. Men, women, children, whoever. Faithful to God first. Right? So that if your boss asks you to do something you know is wrong, your loyalty should be to the Lord. If your pastor asks you to do something that you believe to be wrong, your loyalty should be to God. Can these things cost us? Absolutely. They absolutely can. And depending on the situation, they will. But what it comes down to is you answering the question within yourself, who are you loyal to? Yourself? Your pastor? Your boss? Or are you loyal to God first? We should be loyal to God first. And it may not always be the cozy choice, but it's the right one. We see Doeg is not interested in what's right. He's interested in cozying up to the king. King can make him rich. The king can make him powerful. He's interested in cozying up to the king. So that in verse 11, we see these priests gathering to the king. If anybody's a little anxious for these priests, let's see what happens. It says in verse 12, Saul said, "Hear now, thou son of Ahitub." And he said, "Here am I, my lord." And in verse 13, Saul said unto him, Why have ye conspired against me? So it's not a question. It's not even in Saul's mind a matter of, did you conspire against me? Did you do this knowing he was my enemy and trying to usurp me with David like half the kingdom does? It wasn't a matter of, did you do this? It's a matter of, I'm just go ahead and assume you did it. So now we're just going to go ahead and start with, why did you do this? Why have you conspired against me? He didn't conspire against him. Thou and the son of Jesse, in that thou hast given him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of God for him, that he should rise against me, to lie in wait, as is this day. Then Ahimelech answered the king, and said, And who is faithful among all thy servants is David, which is the king's son-in-law, and goeth at thy bidding, and is honorable in thy house. He said, Nobody knows he's your enemy. He said, You have not declared to the nation that David should be killed because he has conspired against you. Nobody knows about this. He said, How could I have possibly known? He said, Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me. He said, I am not conspiring against you. He said, Let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to all the house of my father. For thy servant knew nothing of all this, less or more. He's saying to him here very reasonably, I had no idea of any quarrel you might have with David. I had no clue this was happening. And in verse 16, the king said, Thou shalt surely die. That is some next level, crybaby, ridiculous response from a complete and total psychopath, who brought this man here, and evidently the conversation was just a formality. You ever had a conversation with somebody and you can tell they're not even listening to your half of the conversation? Like, they'll say their half and then they're thinking about what they're going to do for dinner after they get through screaming at you. It's what Saul's doing right now. So he's not even listening. Yeah, whatever. I'm assuming it's all lies and ridiculousness, whatever. And then he hears the buzzing sound of Ahimelech's voice stop. And he says, Thou shalt surely die, Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house. He says, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill your whole family, and I'm going to kill everybody you ever met. This is an evil man. The king said unto the footmen that stood about him, Turn and slay the priests of the Lord, because their hand is also with David, and because they knew when they fled and did not show it to me. So he's here saying to these servants, remember, he just said, I can make you rich. I can give you fields. I can give you vineyards. I can give you hundreds of servants. I can give you thousands of servants. It depends on how loyal you are to the king. So you want to do what I say because it's going to be in your own personal self-interest. It's pretty evil, folks. A good man isn't interested in self-interest. A good man is interested in the interest of others. Because the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. They said, no. They said, we're the source of your power. You are powerful as a king because you have servants that obey you. And what happens if even we don't listen to you anymore? They said, we are not going to murder priests simply because you bribed us. We will not kill these men. So the king said to Doeg, Turn and fall upon the priests. And Doeg the Edomite turned, and he fell upon the priests, and slew on that day 75 persons that did wear a linen ephod. People that wear a linen ephod, that's a priest. An official, part of the worship, part of the sacrifices, part of the whole thing, priests. A score is 20. So Doeg just murdered 85 priests. because Saul threw a fit. I want to say this evening, and I don't know who's going to hear this. This might be the 5 or 6 people that are here every Wednesday night. This might go out to reach 100 people. I don't know, but I want to say this evening to the adults that spend your days thinking about how much money you have or don't have, that spend your days thinking about what you think you deserve that you don't get, to the adults who spend your days thinking about all the wrong that you've been dealt in your life, that cheated me over and my family, and expected that to gain you success, and are mad that now you don't have as much success as you thought you were going to have. Really nice buildings that are completely empty. Church buildings that can hold 400 or 500 people, that on a good Sunday might hold 30. I say to you, grow up. You are as evil as Saul. The murder doesn't matter. What matters is your selfishness. You took and stole for yourself, and God punished you for that. I want you to know today, it's not too late. You've done some things, and you've had a bad attitude for a great many years. But God will never close a door. It's not too late. You can change your heart. You can change yourself back to the direction God has for you. You can listen to Him. And He will accept you with open arms into the loving forgiveness that He shows every single day. But if you don't, keep reading. You'll see what happens to Saul. You may not like it, but it's true. Verse 19 says, Nob, the city of priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, both men and women and children and sucklings and oxen and asses and sheep with the edge of the sword. Do you guys remember what God got upset at Saul for? Why he was originally rejected from being king over Israel? Because God sent Saul to a city of people that worshipped a god called Molech. Molech is a god who asks them to put their children into a furnace. And the child will pass into and through the furnace. And if the child survives, then it is considered to be accepted by Molech. This kind of evil God could not stand. It could not survive another generation. He hated it that bad. So He sent His anointed king to take out the entire thing. Kill the entire village, men, women, children, all of their animals. I don't want anything left alive. I don't want this evil to continue. Saul doesn't do it. Oh, he has no problem killing the women and killing the children, killing the men. But he keeps the animals for himself. And now what does Saul do? He sends this man, this Doeg, into this city of Nob, of God's priests, and has no problem having everything killed that has a heartbeat. Say, how can a man become so heinous and evil? I tell you exactly how. He turned inward. His vision turned inward. His emotions turned inward. His thoughts turned inward. And his heart, it turned inward. And everything came through the filter of, what does it do for me? How does it make me feel? What do I like or dislike? You guys who has lived long enough to become adults and haven't figured this out yet, it doesn't matter how you feel. The world doesn't spin based off of your opinion. What matters is how God feels and what God thinks. His opinion is supreme. And when we turn inward like this, we allow ourselves to be taken over by an evil. Maybe not an evil as heinous as this, but an evil nonetheless. It's terrible, the things that we just read. It says that one of the sons of Ahimelech, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar showed David that Saul had slain the Lord's priests. And David said unto Abiathar, I knew it that day, when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of thy father's house. That is a godly man, folks. That is a godly man who says to the man who just watched his entire city, family and all, butchered in front of him. And he goes to David, and David says, I saw Doeg there that day when I took the bread and I took the sword, and I knew he'd tell Saul, this is my fault. I should have more carefully considered my actions. If I had not stopped that day, or if I had tried to say something out of earshot of Doeg, or had dealt with Doeg myself, maybe all this evil had not been fallen ever. This is a man who takes responsibility for himself. This is a man who takes accountability for his own actions. Who says if somebody has been marred and hurt and scarred and chased out, then I have done something wrong. What could I have done differently to save this village of people? This is a man unlike Saul. This is a man who looks inward and says, search me, O God. Know my heart. Try me, know my thoughts. See if there be any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. This is a man who seeks to do God's will. Even if he doesn't always make good choices, he tries to. That's the thing, folks. David was not a perfect man, but he tried his best to be a good man. And what we need today is not perfect men. We don't need holy men locked away in their ivory towers, spending hours and hours a day listening to sermons and reading Bibles and books about the Bible and so forth. We need men that will read the Bible every day. They will pray every day. And then they will take the Word of God out into the world that so desperately needs it. That they don't build a Christian bubble of influence around them. That they be a light shining in darkness. We need more Davids in the world, folks. We need less Sauls. We got a lot of Sauls. You couldn't throw a rock in Texas without hitting a church that's run by a Saul. That's why they're a dime a dozen. Looks like a good business model. What we need are some Davids. And you might think, well, you're never going to find a church you 100% agree with. Yes, you will. The problem is they're all run by corrupt, evil men. You keep looking. There are some good guys out there. I have heard the sermons. I've got to know them personally. There are some good preachers out there. You keep looking. We need more Davids. We need less Sauls. And I ask you today in closing, which one are you going to be? It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Which one are you going to be? Are you going to be a David or are you going to be a Saul? Doesn't matter if you're 50 or 5. You can choose to go out into kindergarten today as a David or a Saul. You can go out as that kindergarten teacher as a David or a Saul. It's up to us today, folks. If we want this thing to change for the better, we're going to have to change ourselves. And we all can't be so high and holy and pious as to think that we don't have anything left to change. Of course you do. Look for it. That's the difference between a David and a Saul. It's an intense lesson. I told you that at the start. If we're going to talk about King Saul butchering priests, you can better believe that the conversation is going to get heavy. I hope it's been an opportunity for us to learn and to grow, and not to add another enemy to the list. What do you think the Lord wants you to do? Anyway, that's our lesson for this evening, folks. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and for listening and for watching. And I hope we all go out into the world carrying the light of Christ with us, gathering those to themselves as we go to Christ.